So I am finally talking about my favorite plants of 2024, and it is not lost on me that almost a quarter of the year has gone by, which is very unserious behavior on my part. I recognize that. I thought about making this video into a countdown because I've enjoyed doing countdowns, but then I realized that the video would just never happen. So I am going to be presenting these plants in no particular order, and I'm going to be talking through the things that I do to keep the plant healthy and happy. In some cases, I will be talking about what I ought to be doing to keep the plant healthy and happy, because some of them aren't so happy, and it is completely my fault. It is what it is. You know what? It is what it is. Hello, my name is Palisa. Welcome to Plants and Things. I'll talk about plants and things. First up on my list is my Monstera Tychon, and this is honestly one of my most unproblematic plants, despite what I read on the internet before I got this plant. This plant is so easy to take care of. I water it, or I try to water it when it is dry, and I say that because it is currently bone dry, and that is because this plant has vastly overgrown the pot that is currently in. I am planning on chopping it up before autumn, which is not saying much because autumn is at the end of this month, / somewhere in the 20s, it's autumn. But I am planning on chopping it up before then, and thankfully it's already rooted, so it's not like I'm going to be chopping and propping. I'm merely going to be chopping and putting the plant up in different planters. But this plant, despite it being dry, has still been growing and thriving. It is showing no signs of distress with regards to dryness, which how plants do that is that the tips get dry, which has happened with my regular degular. And I say regular degular because it really is such a beautiful plant that I don't think there are regular degular plants, but the regular degular Monstera deliciosa form, that one has dry tips during a time when I was underwatering it, but this plant has been underwatered and it is fine. I do give it direct sunlight as well. Where I'm sitting right now is where the plant lives, and it is thriving and having a good time. And look at the leaves. Like, I think at most this was the size of the leaf when I got the plant. I've had it for a year now, and then it went to this leaf, which was like, oh, okay. And then it went to this leaf. And I really like that it also almost has a mottling to the leaves, which is really great. And then it went to this leaf, which gigantic. And then now it has this leaf, which is huge. It is huge. And I think that's the thing about these plants that size up, is also the spacing situation. So I am experiencing nice life problems. That's why I'm more going to chop this plant rather than have it, especially because it crawls. I think this is more a crawler than a vertical grower. Is that what it's called? I think this plant prefers, from my experience, not that I was considering a moss pole situation. I really wasn't. But it looks happy to be crawling. So I am going to chop and sell the other plants rather than have like this ginormous plant, because I already have a ginormous regular degular Monstera deliciosa. So I'm not going to be doing this with this, even though it does, I guess, have its own place on this table. But it just would be a lot on me. And it also does have this big pot. So maybe I could consider, but no. So anyway, that's my Monstera Tychon. I love this plant. I love the leaves. The leaves are so beautiful. The mottling, the spotting. Obviously, no two plants are the same, which is really gorgeous. And this randomness of this white was really cool. And apparently also grows really ginormous, which is great. I think this was more unexpected. If you've been on this channel for a while, you know my Philodendron gloriosum was the one that I expected to have these huge leaves, and it really never has. And you know what? It is looking pretty now. See last week's video. It is doing much better, but these leaves were so unexpected. And yeah, I guess you're more thankful when something's unexpected, though you should be thankful all the time. So I'm not excusing my thanklessness. But yeah, it is really cute. It is a showstopper of a plant. It really is. But again, I don't think there are regular degular plants or plants that can't be showstoppers, I guess. So, but yeah, it is a cutie panootie. Next up on my list is my variegated peace lily. And this is also another plant that just is unproblematic and it chugs along. It lives at the top of the bookshelf and just basically gets no attention. And it probably gets less water than the Tycon, because at least the Tycon is like at eye level. This one is not at eye level. And so when I'm doing a whole house watering, I'm like, oh yes, I have to water this plant. And it's just chugging along and it's looking really cute. Some of the leaves aren't like as strikingly variegated as the Tycon ones, even though I would say the pattern seems similar, like they have a similar variegated pattern. You get what I'm saying? Even this splash is reminding me of that variegated leaf. It is less pronounced though, and I think it's because it gets no direct sunlight. And in fact, it doesn't even get the brightest light in the room because it's like at the top, and all the other plants at least I think they get more direct light than this. I think this spot at the top is probably like the least lit. I was like, the least lit of the room, but the room is bright. It is a bright room that gets a lot of like sun streaming in. So it is getting sufficient light, and also peace lilies are supposed to be low light plants. Anyway, it is chugging along, and I have spoken many times about how I love this planter, and I love the combination of the two. I decided to stake it because it was leaning over, and also because I just have a lot of bamboo now. So I'm like staking everything, and I really do like staking things, and also making stakes, which is a ramble and a side note. So I'm just going to stop that. And talk about this plant. So this plant is also quite a no-fuss plant. It is showing signs of browning, which is showing that a particular individual has not kept up the watering of this plant. That's how you see that a plant hasn't been watered, or like is not being watered sufficiently, is when the tips start drying out. These are older leaves, but I think even this is one of the newer ones, and it is also kind of browning at the tips. So I will admit I am not on top of the watering, but this is not even a plant that is looking crusty despite that. It just has a little browning on the leaves. This is not one of the crustier ones, and it is chugging along, and the plant leaves are a good size still, but yeah, I try to remember to water it. Water when dry. That's what I should be doing. I should be watering this plant when dry. It is good still in lower lighting, though I will admit again, I'm not giving it lower lighting. This is still a bright room. It's just probably in the place where it's getting less light. But actually, as I was thinking about that, I'm like, there are plants that are further down there that are getting lower light. So it is getting sufficient light, according to me. So give it sufficient light, but allegedly it also is good with lower light. But I am assuming that in lower light it will just have less vibrant variegation, but it's not something I really have tested. So, it's just a theory. So anyway, I also do not give any of my plants extra humidity, and you will see how that has worked out for me with my alocasias. Because one of them is a plant that I loved that is just disappointing me and looking crusty all the time. But I don't give any of my plants extra humidity because I don't want to ruin my furniture. With extra dampness. So I'm just like, whatever humidity you're getting here, which is not a lot, probably like 25% on a good day, is what it is. It is what it is. So yeah. So I water when dry. I do attempt to fertilize. I do try to fertilize often. There's no schedule to these things anymore. I'm not on top of things. I do fertilize. You should fertilize the plant. Let me say that. Fertilization is necessary for the plant. So I do try to do that. What I've been more on top of these days, or trying to be on top of, is using the fungus gnat. Like, I don't know what it's called. It's not diatomaceous earth. It's this thing with BTI in it to water all my plants every 2 weeks to get rid and keep away fungus gnats, because those little gnats are so annoying. So that's what I've been trying to be more on top of. So the the fertilization I've been less on top of, but you should fertilize the plants probably like every 2 weeks. When I'm on top of things, it's every 2 weeks or even every week, but I have not been on top of it, and the plant has been doing just fine for now. Of course, it will get to a point where the plant's like, no, I'm actually not doing fine and I actually do need nutrients. But yes, for now it is chugging along. And also, again, I want to reiterate, very unproblematic plant. It is very pretty and I do like it. Next up on my list is my Monstera adansonii plant. And I think this is a particular variation of Monstera adansonii, but I don't know. But anyway, it is looking really pretty. I like it in this planter. I like how it grows like this, and I'll insert how it, like, where it stays, because it's really, really, really cute. Yeah, and that's basically it. It's cute. It has like really nice chubby leaves. This, when I was first getting this plant, I think this is really, because I always wanted a single strand situation, and that's what it's doing. But it is getting another strand, which is also cool. So yeah, and they're all growing into the space. So I think it looks better in the space where it lives rather than randomly here. So like I said, this is the only plant in my collection that I found that does not enjoy direct sunlight. Okay, I also should say the only plant that I've put in direct sunlight that did not enjoy direct sunlight. This is the only one, and the leaves started browning and it just looked a mess. It looked a mess, and I could see that, okay, you're not vibing with this direct sunlight thing. So it does not like direct sunlight, but it's happy with bright light. I also, again, my watering methods are water when dry. Water when dry. And I do that, but this plant also doesn't mind being drier for a bit. I haven't seen signs of distress. This crusty leaf was always there. So that crusty leaf is not part of the problem. I don't know whether this one, because there's a crusty side, but yeah, I don't know. But most of the other leaves look fine with the underwatering situation that they are living, this new regime that they are living under. So water when dry, fertilize. Again, I need to be on top of my fertilization, but basically fertilizing every 2 weeks is what I usually used to do and plan to do. That is a good habit that I'm trying to get back on, but I'm honestly not on top of things. And yeah, I just really, really like this plant. I think it looks cute with this planter situation that is full of diatomaceous earth. It's not looking great, but yeah, it is a cutie panootie, and it is a plant that I wanted to get rid of at a point until it started growing so well, and now I was like, no, I'm not going to get rid of, but I do want to get rid of all my other Monstera adansonii propagations. Let me be honest, I am over all the other plants. I just want to keep this one and keep it moving. Yeah, because they are finicky. They do get finicky, and they do grow some type of way sometimes, and then I'm just like, no. So this one is growing well, and it is growing nice, and it is also getting a bit more care than the other ones, I will admit that. But yeah, just generally I'm like, the other ones need to go, and then this one can stay. Next on my list is a plant that sits directly behind me, which is my neon pothos, and this is a plant that almost died and came back, and now is looking so pretty. Honestly, before I get into everything else, I just love when they do this, when the neon plants do this, where they have like the darker spotting, which I guess is called variegation actually, because it's, anyway, so I really like that. And this has like spots of that, and even one with edging of that, so I think it's really cute. I think this plant is just so gorgeous. Like, having these leaves with this neon color is just, it's a beautiful plant. It's a plant that I've wanted to see thrive and like flow down, but which is surprisingly slow growing for a pothos, but it's alive, which is saying something. So, and also maybe it's doing more like filling up rather than growing down. But either way, it is alive and it's really pretty. And I have spoken about how I like this little planter that's in, and how it has whatever this is called, which is basically the minerals being deposited on the terracotta pot, and I like the combo of these things. This plant as well is not, I tried this plant in direct light. Oh my goodness, I just remembered. I did try this plant in direct sunlight, and this is when this happened, and it was getting dry too quickly, and I just was not keeping up with watering it and how it was like reacting to the fact that it's thirsty. This and my spider plant, even though I'm forcing things, I'm continuing to force things with my spider plant by keeping it in a direct sunlit area and having it like, basically it is looking crusty, and because the ends are so dry and they just like keep moving up the dry parts. But yeah, this one did not enjoy that. But I think if you can keep up the watering, then this plant, you could keep it in a direct sunlight place. I just could not. I just was like, okay, you can go back because I am not doing this. So this plant also is kept in a bright sunny room, and it's doing well. It's honestly doing well. It's doing well. I don't know whether my bar is low for this plant, but it is doing well. One day I do intend to hang it up. Not that I have hanging space in this house, so I don't know what my plans are for that. Again, I don't give any plants extra humidity, and fertilize every 2 weeks is kind of my rule for all my plants. I fertilize them all the same. That's how we handle things in this household. I honestly have no like plants where it's like, oh, this one, okay, I'm lying. I do have a plant that hates being overwatered, and so I was taking particular care, and that's my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. I was taking particular care to not overwater it, but otherwise the plants be chill, and this one be chill, and it's having a good time, and I'm having a good time, and maybe it's thriving. I think maybe my plants are thriving because I'm in my underwatering phase, and before I was in my overwatering phase, and maybe they prefer being underwatered than overwatered. But yeah, that's my neon pothos. Next is a plant that I honestly don't talk about enough, even though it is so gorgeous. It probably is my most unproblematic plant because I've had this plant for years, and it came as one little tree, and then I decided to propagate it. I think I did one propagation, two propagations. Anyway, and then it also grew like when it was pushing out a new growth points. It pushed out 2 on this one, 3. So I cut this one recently to try propagate it, but now I can't find where this is. I'm like, where is that? So I might have cut this in vain, but I wanted to propagate and have, because there's like a random spot. Feels like there's a random spot to me where I need to put another little plant. But anyway, this plant is so gorgeous. It is gorgeous and also extremely affordable. One of the most affordable and easy to find plants as well. That some of the plants aren't so easy to find, also affordable, but this one is so easy to find, so affordable, so absolutely gorgeous, so easy to grow. I do grow it in direct sunlight, and this is one of the plants that actually get underwater. Even though it is at eye level, it also just gets underwatered more than the other plants. And it still chugs along quite well. I really like the pink. When I first got this plant, I was like, oh, I just wanted to keep on being pink. But actually the pink, it starts off really pink at the top, but then the pink does fade. But that does nothing. Absolutely nothing to detract from the beauty of the plant. It actually is just a gorgeous plant, just the way God made it. It is beautiful, beautiful. I really like growing it. It also helps create a bushy, like a jungle vibe. So yeah, because it is like very jungular. I don't think that's a word. And I don't know whether you've seen it when it grows in nature. And I was thinking about it today that as it grows bigger, as it grows into bigger pots, I do want to make it bushier. I don't know to what end, because obviously I can't be growing a whole actual jungle of trees in my home. So I don't know where I will be ending with that. But I do want to propagate like maybe 2 or 3 more to fill this up, because I clearly do not know where the other propagation is. So a very easy grower, water when needed. I feel like that's my main tip here. Water when dry, and then it likes direct sunlight. and I give it direct sunlight, and it is happy with the direct sunlight. I don't know what these spots are about. I don't think these spots are about the direct sunlight. I think something else was going on, although I'm not sure what that thing is. But yeah, it's fine in the direct sunlight. I also like this little planter situation, and this is very random, this thrifted catch pot, because I really like glass catch pots, or like thrifting catch pots, and this helps to keep the plant more, like to have more water, because then I can just fill this catch pot with water. This plant is not light. It is not light. Then I can just keep water in there, but it actually doesn't keep a lot because it's like this much space, so it doesn't keep a whole lot of water, but it's better than nothing. It used to be on a catch pot that was literally like a plate, so I think this is better for it. But yeah, just an easy beautiful plant, which I have enjoyed and I've had for years, and yeah, I intend on keeping forever. The next type of plants are hanging plants that can't come down. It's my neon philodendron, which honestly is very much a like in the background chugger, and I thought I would still give it props because it also is a very unproblematic plant that just keeps chugging on. And the other plant is my Peperomia Hope, which you guys have seen featured here so many times, and I just love it. I just love it so much. And then the other one is my Bonnie Spider plant, which is probably going to be the crustiest looking plant on this list, but it is a plant that I love and enjoy, that I am just not on top of taking care of. And one of the reasons is because it also has overgrown its pot, but it's like fussy. It wants to be kept moist. And so I am not doing that. So that's this one is not a water when dry. This is a keep as moist as possible type of plant. But yeah, let me show you them. Here are the three plants together. It's my neon philodendron, my Bonnie Spider plant, and my Peperomia Hope is hidden somewhere there. But it's also growing up there as well, which I'm enjoying. And then there is my Ficus elastica Tenek. Yeah, and I really like how these three plants mesh together. It's really cute, and there's a random jungle there too. So my neon pothos is honestly just has been chugging along since the first day. I water it when I remember, I'll be honest. These crustier leaves are from when the plant arrived. So I think about chopping them up often, but then I don't. But I definitely can say, because this plant is getting direct sunlight, that I definitely think it prefers direct sunlight. Also, look at that. One of my favorite things when they do this dark leaf variegation, which I showed with my neon pothos. So it also has a bit of those splashes. There's one. So the plant does, when the leaves get older, the neonness darkens, which is also cool. And it's growing new leaves at the top. So I like that it's filling itself up, because one of my things was I was going to try fill it up, but it actually is filling itself up, which is great. So then I basically took propagations for vibes. But now I have the propagations. So this plant is really pretty. Look at that. Like reddish neon. So it is a plant that just unproblematically just chugs along at the back, you know, and helps create the jungle vibe, as you can see. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Likes direct sunlight, I think. Water when dry, because that's my tip for all these plants. Water when dry, fertilize every 2 weeks, but otherwise it's honestly just a plant that basically, if it could water itself, I think it would just take care of itself. And then here is my Peperomia Hope hidden beneath these trellises. Is trellises the word that I'm looking for? But beneath these vines, here's my Peperomia Hope. Yeah, and it did get a bit emaciated. I have thought about chopping it up. Oh, looks like it's growing back. Some of these plants, like this one, is quite flat. Yeah, like, don't know whether you can see the difference between this chubby leaf and that one. Anyway, it did get emaciated when I went away and was not watering it. But look at how long and beautiful. Oh, can't get over it. And there's this new one that is growing to, now this feels like Chantal, which that's so crazy when it does that. This is the second time. I'll also show you one of the propagations is growing. I don't know what the thing is called, but where it's like, it looks like it's gonna make seeds. But yeah, this is the main mother plant, and I did decide to grow some of the leaves going that way, which is pretty cool because this was so full. So that one actually needs to be taken higher. Yeah, I would like it to, I was gonna chop and prop, but you know what? This is a really full, gorgeous plant that clearly is helping to make this a jungle. This plant also likes being watered regularly. So this is not a water when dry type of plant. This is a plant that wants constant watering. So the reason why some of these leaves are like thinner and less chubby is because I wasn't on top of watering during the December holidays. I was just, out and about, seeing other countries and stuff. So that's like now a permanent fixture, that the plant has portions that are emaciated and portions that are fine. Also portions that have lost all their leaves. So this plant likes to be watered regularly. And it just doesn't like the up and downness of an underwaterer or an overwaterer. It likes to be watered properly. And then here is my Peperomia Hope propagation that grew these two, I don't know what they are, but basically, just as I was showing you with the mother Peperomia Hope, this one thing became two things, and they just put out these, and I'm so interested to see what they are. And I think some of them got onto my hands. I think I'm taking things off. Anyway, that's the plant. Just a random insert of whatever this is, which is really cool. And then there's my Bonnie Spider plant, which is honestly not doing well at all. All of the leaves have these crusty, rusty tips because I just was not on top of the watering. So this is a prefers to be moist all of the time type of plant. It is not here to be understanding and trying to acclimatize with all the plants, but it is also pushing out a lot of baby plants, like a crazy amount of baby plants. Just, this plant is huge. It is huge. And I have said before that it started out also, but also these baby plants keep coming off. It started off as a tiny little baby plant as well. I can't see. Ooh, this one. Okay, let's try to see this one. I think it was it this big? I think it was this big. Okay, a bit bigger, maybe double the size. But anyway, it is now growing crazy. It's growing crazy plants. It is much too big for this spot, I will admit. These plants are very crowded together, but it's just terrible because I've obviously decided the hook spacing before I encountered this problem, and I'm like, you guys will just have to live in this situation because I am in fact not changing things. Again, what I mentioned, that this plant does not mind direct sunlight. It does want to be kept moist, and I haven't been keeping it moist. It is dry right now. Ooh, yeah, it's dry. So it wants to be kept moist, which is a thing you should consider if you're trying to put it in direct sunlight, because yeah, I'm not on top of that. So this really annoys me. So it is something that I want to get on top of. Instead of just cutting the tips off, I do want to get on top of actually the watering of this plant on my top to-do list. But also it's going to be winter soon, so hopefully that'll help me get ahead of things. Next on the plants that I loved in 2024 and still love in 2025 is my Cebu Blue Pothos. And this plant has a similar shimmery, bluish, dark green color that is quite similar to my Peperomia Hope and does not really come out so well. Actually, like a silvery bluish greenish, just that combo doesn't come out so well. I will insert a clip of how gorgeous and shimmery, in the best light that I can get, or in the best angle. But this plant has grown quite a bit. I think it started off as 3 leaves. I've taken cuttings from it. It's filling up really well. And yeah, it's a plant that I enjoy. I have moved it up It is sitting next to my neon pothos now, and so it is expected to be growing down, but it's also quite an easy care plant. It just took a while to take off from when it was a teeny tiny baby, but that's also probably because when it came back, I immediately started chopping and propping it, and I probably should have just let it chill. But now it has like babies and grandbabies, I'm assuming. So I'm like assuming about the grandbabies, but it is filling up and it is super pretty. And this juxtapositioned with the neon pothos, which I'll also do a mini insert of, is absolutely gorgeous. I think this plant is really, really pretty. I also think I like this pot shape. I really like this pot shape. I think it's called azalea. I like this terracotta pot shape, but I think I like this shape for a planter. But obviously it's certain plants that can live in this type of, wow, my tongue was like, that's a tongue twist. I'm not gonna say that can live in this type of pot. And this is one of them. So it is a really cute pot. It's a really cute plant. And a pot, I guess. So yeah, I water when dry. It is not a fussy plant at all. I have highlighted the fussier of the plants. This one is not one of them. It is fuss free. I would say from my experience of chopping it and like having then the plant be like no, is perhaps let it acclimatize to environment before you start chopping and propping, which is probably true of all plants. Don't chop and prop on day one, which I try to do. So don't do that. Fertilize every 2 weeks, even though I'm not doing it. And no extra humidity is given. And I have grown this in bright direct light, and now it's growing in bright indirect light, and it was doing well in bright direct light. And these are the bright indirect light leaves, and they looked the same, I think. Yeah, they look the same, and they look fine, and they look like it is chill. So yeah, I would say bright light though would bring out, I'm assuming that having less light for a plant kind of diminishes the brightness or the variegation or the that feature that you're trying to get in a plant. I'm assuming that's what happens. Again, it's a theory. I have not tested it, but that's what I'm assuming. But otherwise, I think it will continue chugging along. It also would grow slower with less sunlight, I'm assuming. These are my theories. Tis theories. So yeah, that's my Sleeping Blue pothos. Next up on the plants I loved in 2024 is my Enjoy pothos. And what have I not said about this plant? These leaves are absolutely stunning. I think they do remind me of, as I said with my neon plants, how I love how they do the dark green on green variegation. And this has a similar vibe, which I really, really, really love. It also is a super simple grower. We did have a hiccup when the plant first arrived, and I did have to chop and prop it. Wait a minute, I am misremembering that story. I actually decided to chop and prop the plant heavily, and the plant was like, no. And then I just had tiny little propagations of the plant, and then decided to simply one day put it all together. And I think I did in a video, which I will show, which I'll link up somewhere on the screen right now. But I then decided to put it together, and then it became this beautiful, beautiful plant. I also love the shape of this one as well, which is not the normal shape. Also, crazy rooting situation. But this has been growing really crazy, and I have been chopping it. I chopped it because I have no plans or space of hanging this plant up, but it is gorgeous, and I think I like it more when it's full. So I do try, this is clearly the backside, I do try to turn it around, but my efforts are not in full force as they should be. But I really like this plant plate combo, and I like this random stand. I really like this plant. It also is super simple, water when dry. It also sits in direct sunlight. So here, as you can see, these are the ones that are not in direct sunlight, and the leaves are clearly smaller. And then the more sunlight they get, the bigger the leaves become. So this is a tested theory now about this plant. So if you do want to get bigger leaves, you should give the plant more sunlight. I do fertilize as and when I remember to fertilize the plants, and it lives in normal humidity and it's doing just fine. In fact, these leaves are honestly so gorgeous. These leaves are honestly so gorgeous. Yeah, so this is a super easy plant. I do think it is a plant that is still difficult to get though. So yeah, this and the cousin, because I have been thinking about getting the Manjula pothos, but merely as like a plant to sell, to propagate and sell, because it is a plant that's still quite difficult to get. Not as like collection, but I guess it would be part of my collection then. So yeah, a super easy plant, a super pretty plant, which again, are they non-pretty plants? I don't think so. So yeah, one of my favorites. I think this plant has probably been on all of the plants that I'm loving list. Because it is a plant that I'm loving, and it's a plant that I loved in 2024, and it's a plant I'm probably gonna love in 2025. I have taken a million propagations. I have sold quite a few of these plants, or quite a few of the propagations of this plant. Yeah, which is why I'm like, I do think it is quite a still difficult to get plant. Very pretty. That is that. I shall stop rambling now. Next up is my variegated Monstera deliciosa, or Monstera deliciota variegata. Don't know which one is the correct one to say. But anyway, it is one that took a long time to start growing, and that is because I chopped and propped it too quickly. So I cannot emphasize the advice that you should not prop and chop. You should not chop and prop. Wow. You should not chop and prop your plant too quickly after bringing it to the home. I was told to wait 1 month, and after waiting 1 month, I was like, it was then in autumn, and this plant was like, okay, cool. Now I'm just gonna take the whole year to start growing. And so these are the 2 propagations that I have left. I did sell one of the propagations that I had, and I did make it this little bamboo trellis for it to grow up, because it was growing pretty wonky, as you can see from these plants at the bottom, from these leaves at the bottom. This is the crustiest leaf, and this is the leaf it came with. All the other leaves are doing super great, super great. A new leaf is coming out here, which is really nice. And it's also got these like sizing up. Wow. I thought I was doing something there. It's got these sized up leaves. I did decide at a point to like move it from a super direct sunlight place where it's living again to an indirect bright sunlight place. And the leaves were not happy. So I think this one is a result of my move, but I have moved it back. It hasn't hardened off yet, but I have moved it back, but it does look much smaller than this one. So I would say this plant likes direct sunlight, because I keep it in direct sunlight and it is clearly happy and the leaves are sizing up. But this one was like, if you're going to put me in indirect sunlight, then I'm going to show you what I like about indirect sunlight, which is nothing. So anyway, that is such random that is such a random rant. But yeah, it's a super, I feel like I say that about all these plants, but they really are easy to grow. I think the main thing about all plants is to figure out what they like, and most of them are super easy, and this one is super easy. I also do love this planter that I got on a Mauritius trip, and I think the plant is growing really well in it. It is growing slanted because it sits like this, so it is growing slanted, so I actually should move it so that it grows properly. I think that's maybe one of the things that one should add in plant care, is that like trying to move the plant so that it grows evenly, but that is a lot. That is a lot for somebody who is barely keeping up with the watering of their plants. But yeah, so direct, I would say direct sunlight or bright sunlight, even that. Direct sunlight. I give mine direct sunlight, and I think direct sunlight is better, but I think when I was reading up on it, they said bright indirect light, which I just think that's something that people put on things and then keep them moving. But anyway, I give it bright direct sunlight. I water it when dry and I try to not underwater it, but it does also get underwatered along with the other plants. Normal room humidity, I know people like love giving it extra humidity, and maybe the extra humidity does make bigger leaves, but I think the leaves are sizing up either way, so I'm happy to wait for them to size up without extra humidity. But I do think the leaves are sizing up pretty well. They are sizing up much slower than the Tycon and the Monstera deliciosa, like the normal version, but you know what, I think it will get there. I think by this time next year, it might have a leaf that's as big as the Tycons. But either way, I think this is pretty cute as well, especially because then I have to uppot it, and I am a bit behind with my repotting stories. So yeah, super easy to take care of plant, even though people say it is not. Yeah, so that's my Monstera Deliciosa Variegata. Next up is my all-time fave, which is my Syngonium albo. This plant is growing kind of wild right now, which it used to live in my bookshelf but was growing too wild, and now it's growing wilder still, which I love. I did just chop it up, and I think that's a tip to hold about like plants, that sometimes you need to chop them up to give them a refresh. So I did chop it up. I don't want to say quite a bit, like chopped it up. There are a couple of vines growing here, as I mentioned, from one thing. Like why am I saying thing? There was like one plant. Okay, there are 2 plants growing in here, and from one of the plants, I think there are 3 vines, which again, I will say is a God thing. God decides to do that. So there are like 4 vines here, and I did chop them up. I think I chopped most of them up. This is one of the chopped up ones, and it's growing. Oh, you see, it's growing its new little leaf, which is fun, but that means this like leaf has to grow, just chill like this now until this comes out of there. But yeah, it is a wild looking plant, but I have said it, like I just love how each leaf is just its own masterpiece. And it's also started growing kind of yellowing leaves, which I don't know what that is about. Like, not yellowing in a bad way, just seeming more like this one is less white and more like greenish yellow, which is super cute. Don't know what's going on there, but we love to see it. Love to see it. Love this plant. It was growing wonky to one side, so I moved it to be like this now so that it can get sun on the other side as well, which is a mission. Perhaps I think maybe of like making it be like a round plant where I can just turn it around like that, and it can be like the centerpiece of this dining table. I think that would be great. Like if I just made a center moss pole that it could just grow up and down, or not a moss pole, but maybe like have this be like, have 2 of them crossways like that, and then have it grow up and down. I think that would be cool. I think it would be cool if it was growing all the way around and didn't have a naked backside because you can't keep it one way, because then it starts growing and leaning a particular way. So I think that is an idea for the future of a thing I would like to do. I think this plant has been too small for this pot. This pot has been too small for this plant, but at a point it started, like the roots started rotting, and so that's when I actually decided to chop up the plant a bit, because the ends were not growing anymore, or like were not unfurling, so I decided to chop it up. Anyway, it is growing back, and it's growing back super cute. That's one of the nodes that is growing back now, and it's really, yeah, and that's one you saw. So this is really a plant that I like. It's really an easy grower. Next plant on my list is one that has been featured so many times. It has been on absolutely every single plants that I'm loving video that I've ever made. And I think it's like been the top, because I think it is my favorite plant. And it's my Monstera Deliciosa. And I just love this plant. Love this plant. Love this planter that it is in. It is a huge plant. I just love it. It is so beautiful. And I want to say it's easy to take care of, but it's not like super easy to take care of. You do have to be on top of the moistening. You do have to be on top of the watering of the plant. As I mentioned before, I was at once not, and so the leaves crisp up like that when you don't water properly. But yeah, they become better watered, so you do have to keep the soil moist. This is similar, but the Bonnie Spider plant is honestly the worst in terms of keeping moist. This one, at least, like some top layer drying won't completely freak it out, because with the Bonnie Spider plant, it just is like, cool, you don't care, so I won't care either. So this one is easier to take care of that than that one. I give it sunlight. It does get a lot of bright sunlight, and some of it is direct on it, but it's like late sunlight kind of like late afternoon sunlight that it gets, but the leaves are still really big. It is not a super fast grower, but I think maybe it's outgrowing this pot, and I don't really have plans right now for new pots, so she's going to be staying in here. Again, I do not give extra humidity, but it is super important. It is super important to fertilize. It is super important to fertilize, and I do try to fertilize every 2 weeks, even though I am honestly not very on top of it, but it is super important to fertilize your plants. And yeah, it's just a great grower. I love seeing the plants unfurl. One day, I've mentioned this before, one day I do want to take a video of the plant unfurling, but then I would need to get like a camera, not just use my cell phone, because of course I will need my cell phone for like normal life. So one day when I do that, like I do want to do a plant unfurling video and just to see how it goes. But I even want to, because I even have an Oxalis triangulus. Now I'm taking a side note again. I want to do those like seeing how it moves throughout the day as well videos. So, but that'll be whenever I get a camera, because again, can't just use your phone. So yeah, this is like my darling plant. I think I'm just gonna keep upsizing the pot. I'm just thinking now, but if it has outgrown this pot, because it is growing roots under, okay, this is probably my heaviest plant. It's probably my heaviest plant, so I'm not gonna try that and like break the ceramic and then it's gonna be a whole thing. But yes, this is one of my absolute favoritist plant. Yeah, I think I would just keep this plant on its own. If I had to choose, one plant, this is the plant that's staying. Okay, I'm lying. Also my white butterfly. Okay, if I had to choose 5 plants, if I had to choose top 5, this is definitely my top 5 plants that are staying. Yeah, I'm just like, I like my white butterfly as well. And also the plants in my grandmother's house. Anyway, this is one of my plants that I loved in 2024 and still love in 2025. And yeah, it is a beauty. It is a couple hours later. I was going to try pretend it away, but the curtain is closed. The light is clearly coming from a different direction. I've had an outfit change, which is something that I could have changed back into, but I was like, you know what? It is what it is. This is a really long video, I am assuming, because there are just so many plants that I loved in 2024. I do have like 3 more I think to do, and the next one is my golden pothos, which is hung up high, so I actually can't take it down, so I'll show it to you now. This is my golden pothos, which stays on this list, and I think it's mostly due to sentimental values, though. Look at those leaves, they really are like gorgeous. The leaves have sized down since the plant moved here, like you can see with this one. This particular section is like the leaves were really big and then they were small, and that's because it is getting less sunlight in this area, but I really do like it. I really like the golden leaves. Wow, I sound really out of breath. I'm like huffing and puffing. Anyway, I do like the leaves. I have said it looks like golden candy, which is I guess less distinguishable here in this particular light, because it is like dark now. But yeah, it is a cute plant. It did go through a bit of distress. Even these leaves also, like these ones, yeah, like that one, it did go through some distress when I potted it up in this new planter, which I also like, with the planter and glass combo. I'm obsessed with having like random glass bowls as catch pots where you can leave more water for the plant. But it did go through some distress because of that, and it lost a bit of leaves, and I also think one of the vines is growing to the back, which is a hot mess, but it has started growing back really well. It is facing this way because that's where the sun is, but yeah, it's been growing really well. I did have to chop it up here because it was growing into the door, and I just was too tired at the time to like get a new clip, because obviously there needs to be more clipping there. But yeah, otherwise it is like, look at how tall this vine is. It's like quite tall. So yeah, it is quite a it is quite like a long, beautiful, look at even those leaves, such a beautiful plant and a beautiful planter. So it actually isn't actually just because of bias that I keep it here. I do try to keep this catch pot, in terms of care that I try to do, is to keep it like with some water. So as I was saying, because it's like crazy filming with the clock, because you quite clearly can see that many hours have passed since I was talking about this plant before, but I try to keep the catch pot water like not full, because if it's full then it's actually going to go into the actual planter. I try to keep the like little, there's a like rope in there. I try to keep that covered with water so that the actual soil will remain moist, especially because I can't see the soil. So yeah, although I can feel, and it is, so I'm basically keeping it moist, and try to not let it dry out. This is also quite an easy growing plant. It can like survive on multiple conditions, as you can see now. Like it moved from bright direct sun to here, and it's still growing pretty well, because all of these are new leaves from here. Okay, at least all, like a lot of these are from there, but yeah, it's growing pretty well. It likes water. It doesn't overly mind being underwatered. I think it does mind being overwatered though. I think it is a bit susceptible to root rot, so I would be careful about that. But otherwise, I think it's quite a good plant and easy to keep, and which is probably why so many people have it. I also think it is absolutely a gorgeous plant, and obviously one of my very favorites. Yeah, that's my golden pothos. The second last plant on my list is my Syngonium white butterfly, and this is really heavy. I don't know why I tried to carry it. This plant is so gorgeous. I absolutely love it. It has sized up. The leaves have sized up quite a bit, because these are probably like, look at this one. This is how tiny it used to be. I think these are the originals. I think these are quite possibly, like, this is how small the plant was when it started out. Yeah, so these might be original leaves. Have no leaves died? But anyway, it was this tiny. I think it had two like bunches of this small situation, and look at it now. Look at how big. These are like as big as my hand, and I do not have big hands, but still, that's quite a significant thing. I love the veining on this plant. This is a super easy to take care of plant, but before I get into that, I think this plant is absolutely gorgeous. I love this planter plant combo. I do leave this, I basically water this plant when the catch pot is dry, not the plant itself. Sometimes it does get to the plant itself being dry, but mostly I try to water it when the catch pot is dry. And it's just super easy to take care of. Does well being underwater, does well being overwatered. It is growing these big leaves away from direct sunlight. It used to live in direct sunlight, and it's still like doing quite well away from direct sunlight. It is still in a bright room, so it is getting a lot of sunlight still, like in direct sunlight, but it's still growing pretty well. It does have some crisping leaf or two or three, and I think that's completely fair, and actually doing much better than it could be doing. This is a super common, super easy plant to get, and also just a super delight to grow. I did get this from my mom. She did like give me, it wasn't a cutting, but it took a long time to root. Like it was I guess then it was a cutting, because it took a long time to root. Then I think I like potted it up, and then it was struggling, and then I took it out again to try re-root it, and it was a whole thing. But now that it's rooted, it's growing, it seems to be having a completely good time, and it is honestly a fuss-free plant that you probably can grow in most conditions. I say most conditions. I think it's one of those plants that you can grow in most conditions. It's one of my two favorite Syngoniums. Top 5 plants that I would keep. I'm definitely keeping this plant. So yeah, that's my Syngonium. I keep on trying to carry this. That's my Syngonium one. So the last plant on my list is my Bougainvillea, and this plant is one of my absolute favorites. I love these blooms, and it is not doing so well, and the reason I know that is because it's blooming, and usually when it blooms, the whole tree is pink, and this time it's like formed 3 clusters of pink. And I don't know why it's doing that. Perhaps it's the fact that somebody keeps letting it dry out. And so I would say that this plant does need to be watered regularly. It needs to be watered regularly, and I have not been watering it regularly. It also is just shame. It's just looking crusty. It needs a new pot. It needs new, I've decided to make, because I did tell you that I have a lot of bamboo branches. I do want to make a new trellis for it so that it can grow like a step ladder type trellis. I do want a new planter for it. It honestly, it just needs a revamp. But obviously, I actually should just take care of it. I should just take proper care of it. I really, really love this plant. I at a point, when I thought I had more capacity than I actually have, I thought I wanted a bougainvillea in every color that is available, but this is actually my favorite. This is my favorite color. I have mentioned that there are so many bougainvilleas in this here country, just strewn over people's fences and stuff, and I love, and I've seen so many different colors. Another color that I might want to get one day, if I had a garden, is the orange one. I think the purple ones are okay. They're not my favorite. This vibrant pink, and I will try to get an actual video of it in full direct sunlight, where it just it is so absolutely gorgeous. So it is my favorite of the bougainvillea colors that I have seen thus far. It is my favorite. I have tried to propagate it, and the propagations aren't dead yet, but they are also not thriving. Okay, some of them died, but they also aren't they don't seem to have rooted, but I am trying to do that in a propagation box. So I would say this plant does well outside. I mean, it is grown outside, but not the problem, is that when growing it outside, it is being grown in a planter, and obviously when it grows in gardens, it's not in a planter, so it can find its own nutrition. So the whole thing, I think this does need to be fertilized, clearly, because it's no ma'am, I'm not gonna, it's not bringing out any blooms, which might mean that it's trying to conserve its resources. And so I do need to up my game in terms of watering this plant, in terms of fertilizing it every 2 weeks, which I'm also even going to do in the winter, because this plant does continue to bloom in the winter. It has cyclical blooms, which I think are absolutely gorgeous. Do they create a mess everywhere when they start falling, as you saw one fall right now? Yes, but they are absolutely gorgeous, and it's a job that I'm happy to do, cleaning up the flowers, because I think this plant is absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. One of my forever faves. It is looking crusty right now. It has looked better. I just honestly need to get on top of the fertilization. So I think that is a tip. That is a tip of things I ought to be doing, is actually fertilizing this plant. But that is my bougainvillea, one of my favorite plants. Those are my plants that I loved in 2024. This started as a list of favorite plants from 2024 to the plants that I loved in 2024, and I actually like that title, so I'm just gonna go with that title. Plants that I loved in 2024. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next time. Bye.